Okay, so LaserBoy deals with color in typically in palettes, and the reason is because the the very first version of the ILDA file format that's one that's very common, that you find ILDA files that comply to the very first version of the ILDA file format. It was palette only, and this is the default palette. All right. So if there is no palette specified in an ILDA file, this is the palette that is assumed to be used in most cases. Okay. So in this case, this frame is using this palette. Okay. Okay. This is the palette that's associated with the frame, and this is a target palette, is what I refer to it as, the target palette. So you can change using the up and down arrow keys. You can change, and I could pick a different palette, like, well, there's the DXF palette, for example. And now I can choose B here, and it'll do the best match of these colors that it can find in the target palette. And see, it didn't change any because those colors are pretty close. They're in there. So now this frame is using this palette, this DXF palette, whereas all the other frames, they're using the default palette, as you can see. But this one, nope, this one's using DXF. So we can go to another palette, or excuse me, another frame that's got some colors in it, like this one, for example. And we can pick another palette. There's a nice palette. It's all hue, all right? It's pure hue, fully saturated hue. If we do a B, okay, it looks like that because there is no white or light pink or whatever in the, all right, in this palette. So it does its best to match the palette. So in any event, now this frame is using this palette. It's associated to this palette. So there's things we can do with that now. We can span it across X, which means it's laying it across this way. You see you get this weird artifact. That's based upon the fact that you can only color a vector. So this whole vector can only be one color, and this, right? So if you want more color, or you want a smoother color transition, then we need to add some points here. We're going to add lit distance span. So now we got all those points. So when we go into here again and we say try that again, span across the x-axis. Wait a minute. All right. Span across the x-axis. It looks a little smoother there, right? And there's the y-axis, z-axis. Okay, because dig this, it's three-dimensional. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Okay. Let's see. We can also span. This is kind of cool. And this is radially from the origin, and there's angularly around the origin. So this is pertinent to distance to the origin this way, and this is rotational this way. And when I say span, oh, and you can also do it different ways as well. You can go, let's just show you, you can do it through, let's see, you can span the segments, so there is only one segment, so it turns it a solid color. All right, or you can span the vectors, which means it starts and it goes through the palette by the vectors. All right, or you can index the vectors, which means it actually every vertex in this corresponds to the next value in the palette. Okay, so it goes to the palette actually several times because there's 2,755 vertices in this image, so it's going to go through the palette however many times it takes to get it up to 2,755 vertices. Right? Now when I say span, what I mean by that is, well, as you can see, I'll show you. Okay. Make it take up the whole frame. Alright, so we've got menu G, we go 1, it spans across there. Now, it spans according to recolor palette span factor, which is currently set to 2.0. Let's just set that to 1. So now it's 1. That means you're only going to get one iteration of the palette. That's where the palette starts, and that's where the palette ends. See? All right, same holds true. If you span, there's where the palette, this is where the palette starts, and this is where the palette ends. Okay? So spanning something means however many vertices there are, doesn't really matter. Distribute these colors across whatever measure it is by the span factor, which we just set to 1. So it's currently 1. If we went back in there and we set the palette span factor to 3.33, right? We do the same thing. It goes through the palette 3 1/3 times, or there you see the palette. There's 1, 2, 3 1/3 times. So that's what spanning is all about. It basically means whatever it takes to make this palette fit, whatever orientation you're going to use to recolor this frame. And it doesn't really matter how many vertices there are. It will mathematically span itself across those vertices.